Alright, so what about these? Number 4. Again, if I was to approach number 4 and I was asked to do this on a test, I could use synthetic division or I could use long division. And to help me determine which one I would want to use, I would look at the divisor. 4r plus 10. To me, because in order to use synthetic division, you have to use the root of this factor. And to find the root of this factor, I'd have to actually solve it because r is with a coefficient. I would minus 10 minus 10. I'd have 4r equals negative 10. Divide by 4, divide by 4. R equals, when I reduce, negative 5 halves. So I could use synthetic division with my negative 5 halves, but that would be a messy thing working with a fraction like that. And so to me, just seeing that this 4r exists, or the r exists with a coefficient, that would tell me to use long division. So I'm going to go ahead and use long division to divide 4r plus 10 into my polynomial. And again, for long division, you set it up, the divisor outside, 4r plus 10, and then inside your dividing box goes the dividend, 20r cubed plus 66r squared plus 20r minus 50. That is my first step, to write it out correctly so I can be able to look at it and work through the problem. And then, like we discussed previously or just recently in class, to start this, I would take the first term of my polynomial and divide it by the first term of the divisor. 20r cubed divided by 4r. If you can do that in your head, that is great. I am going to do side math to show my thought process. Coefficients first, 20 divided by 4 equals 5. Now there's 3 r's on top, 1 on the bottom. That means that when I cancel these out, I will take 1 away from what's on top. So I'm left with 5r squared. And again, to show you that, that's r on top, r on bottom. There's 1 on top that I can cancel out, 1 on bottom. I'm left with 2 on top. So what I'm left with over here is 5r squared. Please write it in a line. The square terms go above the square terms in the polynomial. That's how I know I'm tracking. Now, once I get to this point, I do the waterfall. I have to multiply it back into it because, again, I want to be able to cancel out my highest power and go down the line with that process. So I would multiply it back into it, 5r squared times 4r, and 5r squared times 10. So 5r squared times 4r, if I did my math correctly with dividing, it should automatically jump out at you that when I subtract these things, my cubed term will cancel out, because that's the whole point of this process. Then 5r squared times 10, I get a plus 50r squared. At this point, I have to subtract because, again, I want to cancel out power by power by power until there's no remaining powers to work with. I'm going to subtract, and please put what you're subtracting in parentheses just to help you work through it. Now 20r cubed minus a positive 20r cubed, those cancel out. So I know I did my math right so far. And then moving to 66r squared minus 50r squared. In that case, it is a 16r squared I'm left with. So far, so good. I'm almost done and back to the first step again. But my r squared is lonely. I have to bring down the next term in line, which is a plus 20r. When I reach this point, I go back to the beginning and I do the whole dividing process over again. I will do it in purple now. I take my first term divided by my first term. 16r squared divided by 4r. Again, I can do side math if I would so like to. 16 divided by 4 is 4. There's 2 r's on top, 1 on the bottom, so one of them cancels out. I'm left with just an r on top. So I would write plus 4r on top of the box. And notice my linear terms r will line up with each other, so I'm doing good. At this point, I have to multiply it back into there. to cancel out my r squared terms. So I'll take 4r times 4r, which is 16r squared. That should jump out at you because now you're going to be able to cancel something out. And then 4r times 10, which in this case is plus 40r. At this point, I'm ready to subtract again because I'm trying to cancel out that next power. I'm going to put what I'm subtracting in parentheses. I get 16r squared minus 16r squared. I did good because those cancel out. 20r minus 40r. 20r minus a positive 40r would leave me, again, you can do side math or you can use your calculator, but would leave me with a negative 20r. And at this point, one last time, I'll do it in red now, it's lonely. I have to bring down that final term, which is a negative 50 or a minus 50. Now, I go back to the beginning one more time to cancel out the linear term of r. I take first term divided by first term, negative 20r minus, or divided by 4r. I can do the side math over here. Hopefully you can do this in your head, but again, if you can't, just do your side math. Negative 20 divided by 4 is a negative 5. 4r, I'm sorry, there we go. And then, because the r should cancel out. R divided by r, they both cancel out. So I'm just left with a negative 5. I write that up above there, and the constant term lines up over the constant term. So I know I'm doing good. And then one last time, I multiply out negative 5 times 4r. If I did that correctly, I should get a negative 20r. And then negative 5 times a positive 10 gives me a negative 50. If I subtract, please put what you're subtracting in parentheses. Again, negative 20 minus a negative. Whenever you minus a negative, it turns positive. So that would cancel out. And then negative 50 minus a negative 50 turns positive, so that would also cancel out. In this instance, I have no remainder, so I don't have to put a remainder up with my answer. If this wasn't 0, let's say it was like a 4, then I would have to include that in my answer. Just like we did with synthetic division. I would plus 4 over my 4r plus 10. But in this case, I have no remainder, so this is my final answer.